Welcome to My Irish Radio, music and culture news, your connection to everything happening in the world of Irish music and culture. I'm Jamie Flanagan. Each episode will share the latest news from Ireland's vibrant music scene, from traditional and folk to rebel ballads, pub tunes, Celtic rock, and today's top Irish pop. We'll also bring you updates on festivals, cultural events, and people keeping Irish heritage alive around the world. And remember, My Irish Radio is more than just a station. It's your community, your soundtrack, your voice. You can listen 24/7 at myirishradio.com and through the links in the podcast description below. Here's the best part. You can be part of it. Host your very own show on My Irish Radio. Choose your playlist, share your stories, make My Irish Radio your Irish Radio. Let's get into what's happening this week in Irish music and culture.
Okay, so let's settle in. It is Friday, the 13th of February, 2026.
Right.
And if you've been looking at the headlines coming out of Ireland this week, you might feel a little bit like you're suffering from temporal whiplash.
Temporal whiplash is a very, very polite way of putting it.
Yeah.
It's more like time travel without a seatbelt, I think.
It really is. I mean, on one hand, we're looking at a music industry that is just posted a revenue figure so large, it almost looks like a typo.
€1 billion.
1 billion. And then you have a government launching these world-first funding schemes for artists. It feels incredibly futuristic.
It does. It feels like a mature, modern economy firing on all cylinders. It's like they're recognizing that cool is actually a currency.
But then you turn the page and literally people are in the mud.
Mm-hmm.
In Dublin, digging up Roman artifacts that historians sort of assume shouldn't even be there.
Or they're pouring €90 million into renovating ancient libraries to stop them from, crumbling into dust.
It's a complete collision of eras, isn't it?
It is. You have this hyper-modern, lucrative cultural industry sitting right on top of quite literally ancient soil that is still surprising us.
Exactly. So our mission for this deep dive is to try and connect those dots.
Okay.
We want to understand how Ireland is managing this balancing act between being, a custodian of the ancient past and an incubator for what looks like a massive future for the arts.
And to figure out if those two things are actually competing with each other for resources or if they're somehow feeding each other.
So let's follow the money first.
Right.
Because that's the big story.
Right.
Usually when we talk about the arts, we're talking about charity or grants or, struggling poets. But this week, that narrative just flipped. €1 billion annually.
That number is a really big deal. It's a psychological threshold. For context, that puts the music industry into a bracket of serious economic drivers.
Right.
It stops being a nice-to-have cultural add-on, something you support because it looks good, and starts being treated like tech or pharma.
It's an export product.
A major export product. And it seems like the government has finally really realized this. Because we have to talk about the BIA.
The basic income for the arts.
This is the big one. This is the structural shift that, policy wonks around the world are watching.
For listeners who haven't tracked this all started as a pilot program, right?
Yeah.
Back in 2022.
Yeah, coming out of the pandemic when everything was shuttered and musicians were basically out of work for 2 years.
So it was an emergency measure.
It was emergency triage back then, a way to stop the bleeding. But the news this week, and this is what makes it so historic, is that they've moved to make the scheme permanent.
Wow.
They aren't just testing the waters anymore. They are, building the dam.
Okay, so walk us through the mechanics here. Who gets what? Because basic income is a buzzword that gets thrown around a lot.
So the scheme supports roughly 2,000 artists, and the headline number is a stipend of $325 per week.
$325 a week. Now, playing devil's advocate, in 2026, living in Dublin or Cork, that's not exactly buying you a penthouse.
Oh, no. It's not a king's ransom. But you have to look at the function of the money.
Okay.
It's not meant to be a salary for being famous. It's a floor. The logic, and the source material is very clear about this, is that it removes the starving artist variable.
Oh, I see.
It creates a baseline stability so a musician isn't exhausted from working 40 hours a week in a warehouse just to pay rent, leaving them with no energy to actually create.
So it's treating art like research and development.
That is the perfect analogy. Absolutely perfect. In tech, you pay people to code things that might not work for years, right?
Right.
This is the state paying people to develop cultural IP, knowing that some of it will eventually feed that €1 billion industry we just mentioned.
It transforms the artist from a gig worker to what? Funded researcher?
Precisely. And they aren't just paying them to make it, they're paying to ship it. We saw Minister Patrick O'Donovan announce another $1.6 million for Culture Ireland,
Specifically for global promotion.
which completes the supply chain. You fund the creation with the basic income, then you fund the export via Culture Ireland. It's a very confident, very aggressive strategy.
It's basically saying we are a cultural superpower and we are going to subsidize our dominance.
It is, however,
Yeah.
and there is always a however in these deep dives,
There is.
this utopian vision of state-supported creativity. It seems to stop and stop abruptly at the border.
Yeah, if you look north, the picture changes drastically.
It really does.
We got this campaign, Free the Night, and they are not celebrating a basic income. They are literally in court.
They've launched legal action against the Northern Ireland Minister for Communities, and the contrast is it's stark. While Dublin is writing checks to individual artists, Belfast is fighting over licensing laws just to keep venues open.
It feels like two different centuries operating on the same small island.
It's a disparity in policy infrastructure.
Yeah.
In the Republic, the policy is enable and fund. In the North, the nightlife sector feels the policy is, restrict and contain.
It really highlights how fragile a scene can be if the laws don't support it.
Exactly. You can have all the talent in the world, but if the doors are locked at 11 p.m., or if the licensing is punitive, the culture it suffocates.
It's a reminder that culture doesn't just happen in a vacuum.
It happens within a legal framework. Absolutely.
Well, let's talk about the culture that isn't suffocating. Because the actual output, the music hitting our ears this week, is just relentless.
It is. But before we get to the new stuff, we have to acknowledge a major loss that kind of frames all of this.
Andrew Rankin.
The longtime drummer for the Pogues, he passed away this week.
When you think of the Pogues, you obviously think of Shane MacGowan.
Of course, the lyrics, the voice.
But Rankin, he was the engine room.
He was the heartbeat. And the Pogues were such a chaotic band. They were mixing traditional Irish instruments with this raw punk aggression. To hold that all together, you need a drummer who can swing but also hit hard. Rankin did that. He defined a sound that said Irish music can be beautiful, but it can also, punch you in the face.
And I feel like you can draw a direct line from that sound, that specific mix of heritage and aggression, to the big release this week.
You're thinking of Kneecap.
I am absolutely thinking of Kneecap. They dropped a new track, Liar's Tale.
And the lineage is undeniable. Kneecaps are doing for the Irish language what the Pogues did for Irish folk.
How so?
Well, they're taking something that was viewed as traditional or academic or even dying, and they're making it dangerous again.
They're making it street.
Exactly. They're rapping in Irish about life in West Belfast.
And it is loud. It's visceral.
Very loud. And they aren't the only ones bringing that kind of energy. We saw a new track from Sprints.
Called Decepticon. Great title.
It is. And it taps into that post-punk revival that Ireland has become so famous for.
Fontaines DC really kicked that door open.
They did. And now you have Sprints just sprinting through it. But it's not just noise, The variety in the releases this week is what's really impressive. You pivot from Kneecap to Ye Vagabonds,
who just released their 4th album, all tied together.
And that is pure harmony-rich folk. It's intricate, it's quiet, it's the music you listen to on a Sunday morning.
Whereas Kneecap is Saturday night.
Absolutely. Then you have Mike releasing Seat Filler, which is much more pop. You have Celine Lawrence with Punchline. You have Drew Makes Noise up in Belfast doing electronic work.
It's a functioning ecosystem. It's not just one sound dominating.
And that ties back to the funding argument we started with. When you have a healthy ecosystem, you get biodiversity. You don't just get 10 versions of U2.
Right.
You get folk, rap, electronica, and post-punk all thriving at the same time.
And we're seeing that reflected in the live calendar for 2026. The Forbidden Fruit lineup is out.
And it is very current. Kedema, Nia Archives, Joy Crooks, Catronata, that is a lineup for a modern dance-focused audience.
It's not looking back at all.
Not at all. It's looking at what the club scene is doing right now.
But then, just to throw a curveball, Mumford and Sons are playing Marlay Park.
Which is interesting. They sort of represent the stadium version of that folk sound we were just talking about.
It's a massive sing-along.
Totally different energy to Forbidden Fruit. But it shows the market can sustain both. You can have the niche electronic festival and the massive folk pop sing-along in the same summer.
And for anyone listening who is sitting there with a guitar thinking, I want to be on those posters, there's an open door right now.
The Robinson Emerging Artist Showcase. Applications are open until February 28th.
So get those demos polished.
Exactly. We talk about the billion-euro industry, but it needs fresh blood. These showcases are the pipeline.
You need the basic income to survive, but you need the showcase to get signed.
That's it.
Okay, moving from the stage to the screen.
You're listening to My Irish Music and Culture News, brought to you by My Irish Radio, streaming the best in Irish and Celtic music all day, every day. From classic jigs and reels to the latest Irish rock and pub favorites, we celebrate the sound of Ireland worldwide. Want to be more than a listener? Be a host. Share your love for the Irish music by hosting your own show on My Irish Radio. It's easy to get started. Just send us an email, myirishradio@gmail.com. Don't forget, you can listen 24/7 at myirishradio.com. Make My Irish Radio your Irish radio.
Okay, moving from the stage to the screen. Because if the musicians are having a moment, the actors are having a dynasty.
A dynasty is a good word for it. It feels like a golden age. The big news, of course, is Jessie Buckley.
Oscar nomination.
For Hamnet. She already picked up the Golden Globes for it. This is a heavy-hitting role.
Playing the wife of Shakespeare, dealing with the death of a child.
I mean, it's the kind of role that defines a career, and she is just getting universal acclaim.
She's incredible.
Yeah.
But can we talk about the other big movie news?
I know where you're going.
Because while Jessie Buckley is doing Shakespeare, there is a trailer dropping for a movie that is, well, it's about a different kind of Irish tragedy.
You're talking about Saipan.
I am talking about Saipan, the movie about the Roy Keane and Mick McCarthy fight at the 2002 World Cup.
The Civil War of Irish football.
I still can't believe they're making a movie about this. I mean, I remember it so vividly, but is it cinema?
Well, look at the reaction to the trailer. It's massive. It speaks to something about the Irish psyche. That week in 2002 wasn't just about sports.
No.
It was about authority, professionalism, national identity, and, stubbornness.
Mostly stubbornness.
A lot of stubbornness. But the fact that the film industry is confident enough to take this very specific local sporting dispute and treat it as a major dramatic feature, that shows confidence.
They aren't just making movies for Hollywood.
They're telling Irish stories to Irish people and expecting them to be blockbusters.
It's myth-making. We're turning Roy Keane into Achilles.
In a way, yes, we are canonizing our own recent history. And speaking of legends, we should mention Brenda Fricker.
The original. An icon.
She's being awarded the Freedom of the City of Dublin, a well-deserved honor.
She was winning Oscars before it was trendy for Irish people to win Oscars.
She really was.
Right.
And on the stage, Michael Flatley is back.
The Lord of the Dance, celebrating 30 years.
30 years. It's easy to be a bit cynical about Riverdance or Lord of the Bands now because it's so big and maybe a bit kitschy.
Right.
But it changed everything. It took a very rigid, traditional folk dance where you literally weren't allowed to move your arms.
And turned it into a stadium rock spectacle.
Exactly. It's another example of that modernizing heritage theme. It proved you could sell Irish culture to the world on a massive, massive scale.
Which brings us perfectly to the deep part of this deep dive. We need to leave the glitz of the Oscars and go, well, underground.
Literally underground.
Because while all this new art is being made, the ground itself is coughing up history.
This is the fascinating counterpoint to the billion-euro music industry. We have major archaeological and heritage news this week.
Let's start with the books. Trinity College, the Long Room.
One of the most famous libraries in the world. They are spending $90 million on a conservation project.
That is a lot of money for a renovation.
It is, but this isn't just a lick of paint. This is preserving the physical hardware of Irish intellectual history.
They're saving the literal foundation.
Yes, they're saying the container of culture is as valuable as the content. But the thing that really blew my mind this week was the Roman pot.
Ah, yes. The Dromina Promontory Fort find. This is a detective story.
It really is.
Okay, so I'm not an archaeologist. To me, finding a Roman pot in Europe sounds like finding a Starbucks cup in New York. They're everywhere, right? Why is this a headline?
Because they are not everywhere in Ireland. That is the key.
Oh.
The Roman Empire stopped at Britain. They stood at the coast of Wales. looked across the Irish Sea and basically said, nah, not today. They never successfully invaded or settled Ireland.
So there shouldn't be Roman stuff here.
Not settled Roman stuff, no.
Okay.
We find bits and pieces, coins, scraps, but it's usually interpreted as loot from raids.
Irish raiders going over, stealing stuff and bringing it back.
Right. But this discovery at the Drumina site in Dublin is an intact Roman vessel.
Intact, so someone didn't just drop it running away from a fight.
Exactly, and the context matters. The site also yielded other artifacts. It suggests trade.
Okay.
It suggests a wealthy settlement that was importing luxury goods from the empire. It changes the whole narrative from Ireland was isolated to Ireland was trading with the superpower next door.
So 2,000 years ago, wealthy Dubliners were importing cool Italian ceramics.
And today they're importing Italian espresso machines.
The more things change.
Mm-hmm.
But that is a crucial point. Culture has always been a flow.
It's never been static. We've always been bringing things in and sending things out.
And we can't forget the other major find the excavation at Sligo's Green Fort.
Yes, over 1,000 items found there. That's a massive data set for historians. It's going to take years to analyze all that.
It's just incredible to think that while we're busy worried about the future, the ground is still filled with secrets.
It is.
Now, speaking of flows within society, there were a few other updates this week that touch on the social fabric of the country.
Yes, two very different but important stories. First, the Clonskeagh Mosque in Dublin has reopened.
There have been some internal disputes there.
There were, and quite significant ones. So the reopening signals a resolution. It's a vital hub for the Muslim community in Dublin.
And it reflects the changing face of modern Ireland.
It does. And on a much heavier note, we saw a meeting between a survivor of clerical abuse and Pope Leo XIV.
Which is a stark reminder of the other side of Ireland's history.
It is. Their relationship with the church is a deep wound that is still being processed. That meeting shows that the dialogue, however painful, is continuing. It's not a closed chapter.
It's a lot to hold in your head at once, isn't it? A billion-euro music industry, Roman pots, and these deep social reckonings all in the same week.
And we're still looking forward. We have Valentine's Day coming up with some historic romantic records being released.
Which sounds lovely.
And the digital debut of An Gowd Hall.
The first Irish-language newspaper.
Yes. Digitizing, that makes it accessible to the world. Again, using modern tech to save old culture.
A researcher in Tokyo can now read it instantly.
Right. And finally, the St. Patrick's Festival 2026 program is out, and they are promising a massive citywide expansion.
So the party is only getting bigger.
It seems so.
Okay, let's try to pull all this together. We've covered so much ground, from 325 weekly stipends to 90 million libraries. What is the signal in all this noise?
For me, the word is confidence.
Confident.
Absolute confidence. Ireland in February 2026 isn't asking for permission anymore. It's confident enough to fund its artists permanently. It's confident enough to make blockbuster movies about its own sporting scandals. It's confident enough to spend a fortune on old books while pushing aggressive, modern electronic music.
So it's not choosing. It's not saying we are a land of saints and scholars or we are a modern tech hub.
It's saying we are both. And it's aggressively funding both. It's a mature culture that knows its value. It knows that a Roman pot and a techno track are both part of the same story.
I love that. But I want to leave the listener with a thought to chew on. Something that goes back to that basic income idea we started with.
Go on.
We established that the BIA removes the desperation. It stops the starving artist thing. And that's objectively good for human welfare.
For sure. Nobody wants people to starve.
But historically, a lot of great art comes from friction, right? It comes from the hustle, from having your back against the wall.
The whole tortured artist trope, or the idea that limitations breed creativity.
Exactly. So my question is, if we remove the financial panic, if everyone is safe, how does that change the kind of art we get in the next 10 years?
That is the billion euro question.
Do we get art that is safer? Do we get nice, pleasant, middle-of-the-road art because everyone is comfortable? Or do we get art that is weirder and riskier because nobody is worried about selling tickets just to pay the rent?
I'm optimistic. I think if you give people the freedom to fail, they will try things that are impossible to commercialize.
You think so?
I do. In a decade, we might look back at this BIA moment as the start of an avant-garde golden age, simply because people could afford to be strange.
Afford to be strange. I think that is the perfect goal, and I, for one, can't wait to hear what that strangeness sounds like.
Neither can I.
That is it for our deep dive into the Irish cultural state of play for February 13th, 2026. Go dig into those sources, listen to Kneecap's new track, and maybe keep an eye on the ground.
You never know when you might trip over a Roman pot.
Thanks for listening. We'll catch you in the next one.
That's it for this episode of My Irish Radio, Music and Culture News. Thanks for joining us. And remember, you can hear the best in Irish and Celtic music 24 hours a day at myirishradio.com. If you ever dreamed of sharing your favorite tunes and stories, now's your chance. Become one of the hosts. Host your own show right here on My Irish Radio. Just send us an email. It's easy as that. myirishradio@gmail.com. Until next time, it's Jamie Flanagan. Keep the music playing and keep Ireland in your heart.